How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast. My name is Huge Pop, aka Scott Rogers. Tonight, my guest on Huge Pop Wrestling Podcast is known for the Michael Jordan of misting. He is the guy with the 6-star booty, the one only Travis Horn, aka JT Energy. Let's go, baby! How's it going tonight, JT?
Great. I always like to see what everybody's got set up for an intro because I've called myself and done so many different little things throughout the years that I expect it to never be the same. So I'm always excited to see what everybody's got on the docket for how they introduce me.
Well, I hope I did you well, man. I hope I did you well. So, first question is, where did you get the $6 booty? Where'd that originate from?
When I started calling myself the 6-star booty, it was a while back. It was around the time that we had our very first Kenny Omega and Okada matches in New Japan Pro Wrestling, where Dave Meltzer first gave out the 6-star rating.
Okay.
And I was trying to think to myself, okay, I need to switch my moniker or my tagline kind of up to update my character, my presentation.
All right.
And I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, at the time I was incorporating a lot of dancing and over the top, like just arrogance to my character. So I thought to myself, I go, hey, what better way? We'll go ahead and bring some attention to the backside. I'll get some brand new trunks made, 6-star booty right on the back of them.
All right.
And that's what it was for quite a while. I definitely referred to myself I referred to myself as a 6-star booty for a good chunk of time, at least a handful of years there. But that's initially where the inspiration pulled. I was just trying to think to myself what I could accentuate and get people talking, or at least get people's attention a little bit
All right.
with what was popular in pop culture and pro wrestling at that time period.
Awesome, man. You said the word accentuate. I got to share a little quick story. My wife, she tried on this pair of jeans and she said, "Hey," and I'm not a big word guy, so I just use words when I think I can use them. And she goes, "Hey, how do I look at these jeans?" And I said, "Well, that accentuates your butt." And that was the wrong thing to say, I guess, because she didn't take it right. But I don't know why you shared that, but you used the word accentuate, so I thought I would share that. So,
well, that's ridiculous. If I would think if you were to say that, that's a good thing. That's
right.
letting people know, like, wow, that really makes your backside look great. But
that's what I told her, and she's like, she did. I don't know. I think now that we've gotten past that, I think she's okay. So I'd like you to start the show by telling the fans a little bit about who you are. Where did you come from? Where were you, born and raised? What did you, college and stuff like that before we dive into the wrestling career?
Sure. I'll give you a little rundown. So I was born and raised in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay.
I lived there until the age of 10. And then we moved up to Iowa from a very small town called Thor, just like the superhero.
Okay.
So nothing too wild, nothing too crazy, very just normal life. Oklahoma, I would say, is where I first fell in love with pro wrestling through like the introduction of some of my first pro wrestling video games or the WWF Coliseum home videos. Okay. That's where I got my first taste of pro wrestling. And when I moved up here, started to get a little older, that's kind of when things were picking up a little bit. Attitude Era hits, everybody's into pro wrestling. And then you get kind of excited because now everybody loves pro wrestling, but that kind of faded after a while. And I still hung on to it. I still love my pro wrestling. So as I went through high school, I did have a little bit of time where I was like, I don't want to tell everybody that I'm so into pro wrestling because I'm trying to be into figuring out who I am in my career and girls and all that fun stuff.
Right.
But once I went to Iowa Central Community College, got my associate's degree, moved on to Iowa State University, got my bachelor's degree. Okay. And through all this time period, deep down inside, I was always telling myself, like, I really would love to be a pro wrestler. That was always my dream. But chasing other things, doing different things that made me happy, thinking that wasn't a realistic option. But as life changed and my life changed, I did go to WrestleMania 31, and going to WrestleMania 31 really is what I always encompass, changed my life. Seeing Seth Rollins win the main event of WrestleMania, cashing in his Money in the Bank, and then sitting there in that stadium watching a guy from Iowa win the WWE Championship on the grandest stage of them all.
Yeah.
And me telling myself, I'm here. I'm from Iowa. He's from Iowa. What in the world? Why have I? What's holding me back from this dream? So through all my life, I jumped into the game a little late. I started when I was 30 years old, but I would say the time that I've invested into professional wrestling, I've gotten back tenfold what I thought I was going to get.
Nice. I have some things about Seth Rollins later on, and I used to not like the guy, but I can't say I didn't like the guy. I fell off the like for him when he went through about 2 years ago, but that's neither there or there. But now that his new stuff that he's doing right now, I just applaud that. But I have some different questions about him later on.
Sure.
So you shared who inspired you. When you started, what promotions have you wrestled for? Are you currently wrestling with?
So the primary ones that I am champions in right now, I am the SCW Pro champion, which is based out of the Quad Cities. It's kind of like my it's the place I really call my home because that's where I got my debut at. I'm also the Central Empire Wrestling champion, which is based out of Oskaloosa. I am the 3XW Pure Wrestling champion, which is based out of the Des Moines area. There's other promotions I wrestled for in the past. There's a promotion in Illinois called Zawa Pro Wrestling that I've wrestled for. I've wrestled for AAW Pro Wrestling, which is based out of Chicago, one of the bigger ones. I had an opportunity to have one match there. Okay. I have wrestled for MAW, Midwest All-Star Wrestling, which I believe is based out of Minnesota. I had a really fun match there. Magnum Pro Wrestling, based out of Nebraska. Wow. I've gone as far south as Oklahoma, Wrestling for a Cause Pro Wrestling. But I dipped my toe here and there. Last year, I had a chance to go back up to Wisconsin for No Regrets Pro Wrestling and make my debut for that promotion as well. So I've had a chance to kind of go all over. Nothing too crazy, nothing far East Coast, West Coast, nothing too far down to Texas, but going up to Minnesota and going down to Oklahoma, I've at least got myself out there a little bit, but I'm definitely not like a crazy road warrior spending 8 to 9 hours in a car on a weekend.
But you've done your fair share of traveling, got your name out there, and that's
good. I always after a while when I get my bookings, I keep myself fairly busy when it comes to the Midwest because it works so well with my life. But a couple times a year, I usually will make like a little calculated risk and set myself up a trip and see if I can put some distance or put some miles on the car, get a little exposure, some more fans introduced to JT Energy. If I can make sure that it makes sense or have the extra money set aside that if I know I'm not going to come out gaining money from it, then at least I have a little bit of backup.
Right. I live in the panhandle of Florida, so there's several promotions down here, but one I follow regularly is XIW, Extreme Impact Wrestling. So maybe someday you can come down this way, take that chance and look them up.
That'd be great. Me and my fiance, we have started kind of like, if we're going to travel and I can work my professional wrestling into travel, we also are like just trying to go to different states that we've never gone to before. And Florida I've been there, but I don't think she has been there, or at least we haven't been there together. And that's the goal. Right. So
congratulations on the new fiance.
Thank you.
Can you explain to the fans and myself, those that want to get into the business of wrestling, what exactly does it take to chase that dream?
Pro wrestling nowadays is easier to get into. And I say that because if you search professional wrestling schools, there's a plethora of stuff that's going to come up. Okay. Now, if let's say you search that and you find 100, now those top 5 at the top of that list, if you want to get the best ground level base under your feet when you start professional wrestling, I personally think it is worth investing the extra money up front to learn from the best. I always kind of like let people know, like, I didn't choose Black and Brave Professional Wrestling or Black and Brave Wrestling Academy. I didn't choose that because it was the most convenient. I was shopping around pro wrestling schools, but when I realized, like, a couple hours away from me, Seth Rollins had his own professional wrestling school, I thought to myself, this guy is at the top of the mountain, and I already know what has come before him. And little did I know what was going to come after the time that I graduated. And I always tell people I essentially chose the LeBron James of NBA. Like, if I could learn to play basketball and I could go learn the basics from LeBron James, why wouldn't I do that versus someone who has played in the NBA but didn't have the success level of him?
Makes sense.
So when people look into professional wrestling, there's a ton of different places you can go and learn. And pro wrestling is also kind of like college. There's or education, I should say. There's no real end to it. You're always learning. There's never an end. So regardless, I know lots of people that have gone to multiple professional wrestling schools. We've had people who come through Black and Brave Wrestling Academy, and they've gone to the Nightmare Factory as well. They've gone to both places back to back. I only went to the one pro wrestling school. I've done a handful of seminars afterwards, and learning in the ring is where you're going to really hone your craft. But you have to take it and treat it like it is a second job. It does need to be a part of your life for people to look at you and know you are a professional wrestler, because you're marketing yourself as an investment. And for people that put on professional wrestling, they need to look at you, and you have to be different, because realistically, you are something that people are buying tickets for, and they are either going to return to that or they're not going to return to that show. And you are part of that equation. So you need to look at it as a bigger picture, not just, hey, I graduated pro wrestling school, now I'm a pro wrestler, when do I get to go to the WWE or AEW?
Right. That makes sense. I know you've been in WWE and AEW and indies, and so is there a big difference? And if so, from the indie scene to the main roster, is there differences? Like, are the wrestlers, are they responsible for more at the indie scene, like setting up, taking down, compared to the main roster? Is the lifestyle, is there any big difference that you would think that you could share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, on an independent professional wrestling level, regardless of what show that you're on, you should either be helping set up or tear down in some aspect, because it takes everybody on that level to make that show successful. When I get booked as a professional wrestler, I don't think to myself, like, I'm only going to show up, I'm only going to wrestle my match, I'm going to get paid, and then I'm going to go home. That's my only job. There's some people do that and they can get away with it, but I'm just personally, when I show up to a show, if I can help with something, I absolutely want to help, because I want to be seen as an asset all across the board. I want to let people know that my time isn't just in the ring. It's the character that I bring to a professional wrestling show, both before, during, and after. And I think that's important for people to put out there, because to make a business or a show successful and to come back and make it a regular presence or someone who's a future contact, you don't want to burn those bridges. It's just like a job. Even if I don't work for someone for 2 years, but I message that booker once a year saying, hey, I really would love to come back. As long as I get the message back from them that says, hey, man, whenever you can come back, you let me know. I'll make it happen. Nice. Then I've built that relationship the way that I need to. And when you go to the higher shows or the upper echelon, that is a machine that there's so many workers that are associated with that on that level, you're a piece of the puzzle, and you have to play your role perfectly. You can help a lot with other stuff, but you don't it's not your job to do that because they have hired you for a specific purpose. So if you are a sports entertainer or performer for someone like AEW or WWE or New Japan Pro Wrestling, there are people uh, below you that their job is to be a specific thing, and that is their job. They're not going to help you be a sports entertainer or a professional wrestler, but I mean, it's the common courtesy of respecting everyone that puts in the work. So on that upper level, those cameramen that work for those companies, I mean, the wrestlers work hand in hand with them. They're the ones that make the magic, that sell the expression on my face when I get hit with something. That cameraman has to catch that. Those announcers have to portray that story that I'm trying to tell. But Michael Cole's job is completely different than Seth Rollins' job. But the more that they work hand in hand, it is just like the indie level. If I have something going on in the story that I'm trying to get across to the fans, I do want to talk to my announcers before the show because we're trying to make things happen. So that way the professional wrestling fans that come and they give us their time and their money, I want to make sure that they're getting a experience at an independent professional wrestling level that they didn't think that they would get.
Gotcha.
Because then people are blown away that local pro wrestling can be just as good, if not better, than the bigger picture that they see on their televisions.
Gotcha. That makes a lot. Yeah, and that's why like you said, you mentioned Michael Cole. You got Corey Graves. You have those guys that they work. They make the show. They elaborate on what happens, et cetera, et cetera. So they work with the wrestlers as well prior to going on. So that makes sense now. Okay, I'm going to dive right into a couple of things. I've seen things and I've seen matches where you wrestled Jerry the King Lawler. How was that? How was that interaction? That guy is like phenomenal.
He is professional wrestling history personified. When that opportunity came about, that was for Central Empire Wrestling at their event that they call Bridge City Slam. It was Bridge City Slam 2. It was their second time that they had run that big a show. The first show they had, they brought a name in for a meet and greet, Trevor Murdoch, but they didn't have any performers on the show. So when they did Bridge City Slam 2, they really kind of upped the bar and said, not only are we going to have people with meet and greets, but we're going to have people involved in matches.
Okay.
And I was kind of getting the push as the top heel in that company, and me going one-on-one with Jerry Lawler was setting me up to become essentially like the number one contender for their championship. So when I was kind of given the word that I was going to step in the ring with Jerry the King Lawler, it was so surreal because he really is the voice of my childhood.
Okay.
I had my Gorilla Monsoons, my Vince McMahons, my Bobby Heenans, my Mean Genes when I was younger, but the Attitude Era is like what really shaped me. The things that made me fall deeply in love with professional wrestling was that time period, and that's Jerry the King Lawler and Jim Ross.
Wow.
And when I found out that I was going to chase my dream as a professional wrestler, and I get a couple years in, and then here I am being presented with the opportunity that I'm going to wrestle Jerry the King Lawler. And Jerry the King Lawler he's on TV still. To me, it wasn't a fathomable thing that he was working the independent circuit in some way, shape, or form. But when all of a sudden he was there and I got to wrestle him, and the wild part of all that is that shortly before that, that's when I had one of my opportunities with WWE. And when I had my match on Monday Night Raw against Eric Rowan, Jerry the King Lawler was one of the announcers during my match. And then a couple weeks later, I wrestled him, and it was even when I say it still, like it doesn't seem like that's possible that could have happened, but it did. And when we went out there, I wasn't nervous, and that's the wild part, because I trusted who he was and what we could do and make magic out of nothing. And I think we really did. And a lot of the people that came there that night, because the main event was wild. It was crazy. It was a knockdown, drag out, bloody street fight for the CEW championship. And what we delivered and what they delivered were two different things.
Mm.
And so I was very happy with the outcome of that match. And we also had Terry Runnels on that show. And what they did is they had her come out and sit ringside. And they said, the winner of this match gets a kiss by Terry Runnels. And,
there you go.
And of course, King goes, ooh, puppies. Like, yeah. Like he gets all excited like he would. And I was, of course, I was doing my dance stuff and I was a 6-star booty at the time. So I was trying to dance for her. But Jerry the King Lawler and me, it lives on forever on YouTube. And I still think it's one of the most entertaining things I've ever done in my career.
So, man, I'll say this. I was just talking to my wife before we came on, and I'll be honest with you. You are probably the biggest person I've had on my podcast. I thank you for accepting the messages, many messages I did for you. I'll be honest with you. Until you showed up on the thing, I kind of was a little bit nervous, but then when you came on, I was like, "We're gonna make this work. It's gonna go, and we're gonna have fun with this." And I just do what I do. But I'm glad that I hear that from a wrestler standpoint. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because this for me is probably one of my biggest opportunities of my short podcast career type thing. So, and I can tell you this, and I think you mentioned this in an interview I've seen. This right here is my wife and I are foster care parents. We care for 9 kids in the emergency shelter in Florida. And I take this 1 hour that I have as my time to de-stress and forget about everything except for this.
Yeah.
I forget about reality, and I know you mentioned, I think you mentioned, that's what wrestlers want fans to experience. And I think you said that you guys as wrestlers want to experience that too. That one time away from reality.
Yeah. So when it comes down to it, I get deeply passionate when I start to talk about professional wrestling, even with like the people I wrestle with, because I want them to like think about it on such a deep level and realize how much of an impact we really get and how much we can make. And that's everybody in pro wrestling, whether it's a podcaster, an actual pro wrestler, a commentator, a cameraman, it doesn't matter. Because so like when I think about it last night, I've been a heel for like, I don't know, 80% of my career. But even as a heel, like I want people to have the night of their life when they come to pro wrestling, because pro wrestling is a choice. And on a Saturday night, people have busy lives. It is so hard to keep up with your friends and your family because so much is going on. Yeah. And when someone makes a choice to come to a pro wrestling event, not only are they giving you the money, they're giving you the time, and time you cannot give back. So you have to make sure that those people leave and are happy with their choice. Like it's same idea if you went to a restaurant and that restaurant, it was so hyped up and you get your food and like, it's just mediocre service and it wasn't right. And you just kind of leave going, like, I don't know the next time I'm going to give that a try. Like that wasn't as good as I thought. And that's what we are. There's new fans at every single show. We have to bank on the idea that we are entertaining people for the first time, as well as the faithful fans that always come out and support us no matter what. Right. And so when I get that over, and now that I've had the opportunity to be a babyface and be the good guy and be the man that is representing the company that I'm working for, there was a little kid last night that came up to me while I was selling merchandise before the show. And he asked me, he said, "Hey, JT Energy, do you think you could trade me a t-shirt for some beef jerky?" And that's the first time I've heard that. I was like, nice. What do you mean? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, my dad makes beef jerky. And I'm like, I'm really not a beef jerky guy, man. Sorry. I go, but you know what? I'm up for trading stuff. I go, if you can come up with anything and you want to trade, like make me an offer. And I'm talking to some more people and 5-10 minutes go by and this kid comes up to me again. And he goes, "Hey, I got something to trade." And I go, "Okay, what do you got?" And he goes, "Well, I'd like to trade you my friendship. And I don't think there's really a price that you can put on that." And I looked at that kid and I said, "Which shirt do you want? And what size do you need?" Nice. And I knew in that moment $20 for a t-shirt meant nothing for the experience that I was going to be able to give him in that moment that we just built together.
Wow.
And so that's the smallest thing that I can do on a Saturday night to build something that hopefully 5 or 10 years from now, that parents talk about, that kid talks about. It's that type of relationship or moments that we can create. We can do that in our everyday lives, but in pro wrestling, it's special because we're all
Right.
there together for a purpose. And I knew that moment last night, like that's the stuff that I'm searching for every time I go to a pro wrestling event, because I want to make someone's night. I want to be the person that someone goes home and talks about. I want to be their new favorite professional wrestler, not even for what I did in the ring, but for the interaction that we had as human beings together.
Wow. No, that answered all. I didn't expect to answer that question like that, and I thank you because that was one of my questions. What does the merchandise table mean to a wrestler? And you just answered that. You blew me out of the water with that answer, and I.
Well, and like realistically, like merchandise, that's a whole nother bag. Realistically, I bet merchandise for a pro wrestler is just like merchandise for like a band that goes on the road. Like you perform, you show everybody how good you are, and then you go over to the merchandise and you're like, hey, everybody, come meet us, like sign CDs, get our shirts, take pictures, talk about us, spread the word so that way we can raise our stake in the game.
Right.
And it's nice because if you sell merchandise, like that's where you kind of make that little extra kickback where I can put into my next design. I can put into ordering t-shirts or hats or my next gear that I'm going to put out there. That's the extra collateral that we bring in that makes our job as professional wrestlers a little easier. Because, I mean, if we got to drive, we got to take care of our bodies, go to the gym, eat right, make everything that the presentation of a professional wrestler is. You got to kind of manage your finances, and most of the
Right.
time it's all going to come from how much am I being paid as a professional wrestler, and then how much am I going to make from the stuff that I bring to the show. And based on where I'm at in the show, I got to figure out if I can sell before the show, after the show, how long is the intermission, do I have that opportunity to sell? Because if you get stuck there, like I know a lot of heels, they don't want to sell merchandise, but I really think that's kind of like the old school way of doing it, because if you don't sell merchandise, it's not like you get paid more. Um, and there's no compensation where like if your babyface makes money, he's like, hey man, here's some extra stuff. But one of the seminars that I did was with Effie, and Effie is a very extremely he's the best of the independent professional wrestling level on making a name for yourself and doing it well. And one of the things that he said during his seminar was, if you're over and people are investing and putting tons of money into your stuff, and there's 10 people at that merchandise table that aren't selling as much stuff as you, go up to one of those other people and buy one of their things. Like, give them, you're making money, support professional wrestling yourself by buying your friend's stuff. If you see a shirt for someone that you've never met and you think it's cool, buy it. Why not? Give that person money that you're making. If you're making tenfold, you don't have to keep it all. Just like I didn't keep the money for that shirt for that kid. I know I didn't need it. So if my friends are doing great, I want to support my friends just as probably as they want to support me. They might not be able to give me the money like I can at that time, but it's all tenfold. It all comes back around, and you got to make sure that you take care of your friends and your family just as much as you take care of yourself when you have the opportunity.
Gotcha. Back to the match with Jerry the King Lawler, and you mentioned that you had a match with Eric Rowans. I find it was funny what I listened to, what I watched, and I Candy Cates and Liv Morgan and Dudley, Devon Dudley, and so if you can share about that experience, it sounded funny as hell. I mean, it really did. And
Yeah.
I watched the match where you were like, here, take the candy cane, and then
Yeah.
whatever. So how was that experience backstage and in the ring?
Sure. The fun part about it is every time I talk about it, like by you mentioning little things here and there, it jogs memories in my head to like, oh yeah, that did happen. And so they were doing it was a Christmas special Raw in Des Moines, and it was part of a loop that they did for a weekend where they were in like Wisconsin, Minnesota for the 2019 TLC pay-per-view, and then Monday they were in Des Moines for Raw, and they were doing a live taping and then the film taping. And there was a lot of Black and Brave students that were associated with that. And so for the live Raw, Eric Rowan, he beat up one of the people that I graduated with, Dante Leone, who is blowing up all over New Japan, or not New Japan, Pro Wrestling Noah right now. Okay. And he's back in the States. So he's made a big name for himself. So he got crushed by Eric Rowan on the live show. And Dion Roosman, he got KO'd by Aleister Black, and then Buddy Murphy took out Joe Asa. So there's tons of my friends that were on live television, but on the taped episode, which was the Christmas episode, I had a segment, and my producer was Devon Dudley. And I was excited because I love Devon. He's one of the people I grew up Attitude Era again. Right. So they're like, all right, it's you and Eric Rowan, and we got this candy cane thing that we're thinking about. And the night previously, that Saturday night, I wrestled for SCW Pro, and I was in like a 4-way Christmas chaos, let's call it, match. And I came out and I had this full Santa get up, and I was, of course, like kind of a naughty Santa because I was a 6-star booty. And I had bought candy canes, and I'd hang them from my ears because I have them gauged. And so when I went to Raw, I brought a bunch of this like Christmas stuff. And initially when they told me, I was like, oh man, I have this Christmas get up. I'm going to go put it on. I'll show you. And initially they saw it, and the guy backstage is like, I'll send a picture of it to Paul Heyman. And he came back and he's like, too much, man. Like, I think they knew if I went on TV looking like that, I'd be remembered forever. They'd be like, who was this guy? And they're like, no, we got to tone it down. You're a normal professional wrestler, and you're just going to give him candy canes. I'm like, okay. So we're in gorilla position getting ready for the match. And like Devon, he's trying to like figure out what's best for the candy canes and where to put them. And Liv Morgan's sitting there, and she goes, oh, you should hang them from your ears. And I'm like, oh, I thought of that. Like, and he's like, no, we can't do that. Like, they're right up front. And I'm like, okay. And so he's like, we'll put them all in your trunks. We'll put them all behind you. So I got like 6 candy canes in the back of my trunks. And I'm like, okay, whatever. If you think that's best, we'll just go with it, man. And we go out there, and they come back from commercial break. Eric Rowan makes his entrance, and I'm standing there in the ring looking like a deer in headlights because this giant man is getting ready to just destroy me like he destroys everybody else week to week. And the match starts, and the blessing that I have every time I get to do something on a professional wrestling level, it always seems like things work in my favor, and I love this. So Dante Leone match, it was like pretty quick. He did a little thing where he like scrambled under the ring. But my match, I had a thing where I got to stop time. So when the match started, he was going to fight me, but I stopped. I put my hand up, and I did it real slowly because I knew I'm in control of this time. I have to do it on my speed. I put my hand up, reached behind my back real slow, pulled the candy cane out real slow, and presented it to him. I let the announcers like tell the story while I was doing this. And he comes over and he takes it. And then I slowly back out of the ring, taking my time, of course, like I knew I needed to. And I get back, and he had the cage at the time. And so I look over and I see the cage, and I go, oh, idea. I pull like 5 more candy canes out. I'm like, I'm going to give them to the monster in the cage, whatever it is. Right. And then when I start creeping over, then of course he slides out of the ring, gloms me, and throws me into the ring. And before I know it, I'm taking a face choke slam, and then I take another one, and then he pins me. But when I look back at that segment every time, and I think about it, like the idea that the way it came about. So I'm working in the back, and they're like, we need somebody, and we're going to do a candy cane segment. And in my brain, I'm like, I just showed up to Monday Night Raw, and I already have candy canes, guys. You don't even have to buy them. I have them. Perfect. It worked in my favor. I already had what they needed. I don't know how, but I did. And then when I go there and I'm working hand in hand with Devon, and Devon was, I think he made like a joke, like, I'm trying not to talk about your butt. And I was like, no, Devon, you can talk about my butt all you want. And he just like shakes his head like, oh my God, kid, what are you talking about?
Right.
But we go out there and we do the thing. And when I watch it back, I'm like, this is so wild. Like, this segment was tailored for me because it's much more about character than it is wrestling, right? I'm not
Right.
trying to do acai moonsaults and 450s. That's not me. So we do the segment and it's very character based. And that's exactly who I am and what I always have been. And when I realized it's part of the tape show, like they tape Raw a couple times a year, but realistically, it's live all the time. That's what pro wrestling is. It's live, Monday Night Raw, live SmackDown. No, I got to be a part of the taped episode, which meant when I went home, I got to like give winks to everybody, like, hey, maybe watch Monday Night Raw,
Yeah.
and get people excited for what I was going to experience. And the people I didn't get to tell about it. So all the guys I worked with, they were Dion Roosman, they were Dante Leon, they were Joesa, they were their wrestling names. When I told them, he's like, what's your name? I'm like, JT Energy. He goes, what's your real name? And I go, Travis Horn. And he goes, we're going to call you that. And I was like, okay. And in my brain, I even went up to him one other time. I was like, hey, are you sure we can't use like the JT Energy? He's like, no. He goes, honestly, trust me, it's safer if we do your name. And I go, okay, man. And so I, Travis Horn, sat at home in my apartment and I watched myself, Travis Horn, on Monday Night Raw have a match. And my fiance, at the time, my girlfriend, she recorded me. She just recorded me watching myself the whole entire time so I could have my own reaction to my first match on TV. And the cool thing was, anybody I've never known in my entire life, if they happen to see that moment where they flipped to the USA Network, the lower third that popped up on the screen was my name. It was Travis Horn saying that Travis Horn was someday going to be in a WWE ring as a superstar. And I did. I got my one night, I got my one match with my real name to say everybody that ever told me I wasn't going to be a professional wrestler, I did it on the highest level. I don't care if it was 2 minutes or 20 minutes. I did it, and my name was right there at the bottom of that screen in the biggest, best show ever associated with professional wrestling.
Nice. Was that the same segment that the same show that had the conga line with Rowan's Cage?
Yes, I think it was, because there was a lot of other people that were there. And I had some of my accessories that I brought, some of my like Christmas accessories, I handed out to the other people. And I was like, hey, wear this for No Way Jose's conga line, because it fit everything perfectly for that.
Nice. I know a guy personally from that conga line, Zach Mosley, the $1 million mullet, they call him.
Awesome.
So yeah. I know you're a big Seth Rollins fan. You went to his school. Tell us how Seth Rollins' CrossFit passion affects you in the way you train and do things.
Well, the man that has christened himself CrossFit Jesus, he found that CrossFit works best for what professional wrestling needs when it comes to an athlete, because pro wrestling is, you can't train your body for pro wrestling, because pro wrestling is like beating yourself up, but also like doing a workout, but also like trying to convey emotions all at the same time. Like there's no training for that. It's a one of a kind experience. But CrossFit is, it's something where not only can you build strength, that when you work out in a specific way, you're trying to maximize the efficiency of moving high amounts of weight, but also doing it fast and efficiently to go through body weight movements, to do it in a quick manner to get the most out of, let's say, a 15-minute workout.
Gotcha.
And when you kind of dip your toe into that, and you watch him work out, and he's done it for so long now that he can do stuff with the best of them. I mean, he's not like the best CrossFit athletes in the world, But if if Seth Rollins or Colby Lopez would have decided that he didn't want to be a professional wrestler and he wanted to be a CrossFit athlete at the highest level, I bet he could have been. Because when you train and you treat yourself like an athlete, results will come. And he found that. And when you go to Black and Brave Wrestling Academy, so you have training. I want to say you have training 3 nights a week when you start off as a student for 12 weeks, if I remember right, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But as a student, when you go to the school, you're required to do 4 CrossFit workouts a week as well.
Wow.
So you have to do 4 CrossFit workouts. You do a warm-up WOD when you come to class. You also do a cool down WOD after class and do the training during the class period.
Holy cow.
So you work out a lot, probably more than most people would ever assume. So like when I came down here, I joined my local CrossFit gym ahead of time. So that way I could be a couple months in and be familiar with CrossFit before I jumped into what I knew was going to beat my body up, just to familiarize myself with it. Which, if you ever want to go to the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy, get yourself into some kind of the best shape of your life before you go there, just so that way when you show up, you can show them that you didn't take this as a joke, because that's the most disrespectful thing to them, is when someone shows up and after 2 minutes they're gassed and they're gagging and they're like, did you think this was do you think this was a joke? You think this was fake? No, this is the hardest thing you're ever going to do in your life, and you have to show us you're committed. So we're going to push you, and you didn't show up ready. So this is going to suck for 12 weeks. But CrossFit can be a very beneficial thing. I've done it ever since I moved down here. I like the way it treats my body. When you work out with a group of people, it also brings out like that inner competitive side of you. So
Right.
you want to push yourself a little harder because you see everybody else around you is kind of dying at the same time.
Right.
And when you and your friends are pushing yourself to the red line together, it's just more of a connection. You build that relationship with
Gotcha.
people after the class is over, saying, hey man, great job, you killed it. And you're just laying on the floor gasping for air with your best friends. So it's
Nice.
fun. It's a great form of exercise. I know some people say it gets a very bad rap, but that's why I always say, like, find a good CrossFit class coach, whatever you want to say. Always start slow. Even with regular fitness or exercise, there's no point to jump into it. Like, you should treat it like everything else. Fitness and exercise should go slow, and as you make your progressions, then you can kind of work up to what feels right and what feels good. But there's no point. None of us are trying to get to the Olympics or anything like that. So just go slow, listen to your body, see what it likes, what it doesn't like, and then kind of go from there.
Gotcha. You called Seth Rollins your wrestling father, and that is so honorable, and it speaks volumes of your respect to the guy that trained you, etc. So how is that relationship today? Do you still speak with Seth? Do you just learn from a distance?
At this point in my career, I kind of treat him like he's my go-to guy when I think I need that ultimate like pick me up. I like to know that he's always available for me, but I won't ask of his time unless I'm really ready to ask for his time.
Okay.
Because I would say, honestly, I don't talk to him a lot. I don't go work out at the school. There's a lot of people that do work out at the school. They go to training, all that different stuff. I have my normal 9 to 5 job. I go to my gym. I go home, eat dinner. I go to bed. That is my routine all the time. I could absolutely sacrifice more time and I could find a way to go down to that school. But my personal life and my professional life balance that I have built, that is what I'm comfortable with. And I am perfectly fine right now being in my life where I'm at right now.
Awesome.
So a couple times a year, if I feel like, you know what, I need feedback from the highest level, from the person that could tell me the best do's and don'ts of where I am in my career right now. Like I have a big match coming up in April with a guy. He hasn't wrestled as long as me, but it's a good feud. I know it's going to build to a really good match, and that's one of those matches that I hope that delivers on a very high level, because it's not going to be a hardcore match. It's not going to be a tables match or anything crazy. It's just going to be a match, and that match is about the story. And when I have that match, I'm hoping that's one of those matches where I can get the footage, put it up on YouTube, reach out to him and say, hey, whenever you have any time, if you could watch this and then give me any pointers, that would be appreciated. And then I just wait. I know eventually, like he tells all of his students, he goes, if you have stuff, send it to me. I will watch it. It might take a while, but I will watch it. And he means that wholeheartedly. I've never heard one person that has ever sent him something and they did not get feedback from him on. So when he teaches at Black and Brave Wrestling Academy, he's a WWE superstar, but he is still there a couple times a week, making sure he gets his training and his CrossFit in and his classes and teaching you stuff. He loves professional wrestling and the people that love professional wrestling that came from his school. So usually a couple times a year, I'll reach out to him or I'll listen to different people on what they've picked up from him and try to grab those little tidbits from his brain. And I'm sure if I got to sit in a car and have this super long car ride, I would just be overloaded with how much he knows about professional wrestling. But he's kind of one of those guys that I know by the time that I finish up my career, I'll be like, man, I have no idea where I would have ended up if I didn't have you in my corner. But the idea that I showed you the respect that you deserved and you gave back to me what I wanted out of professional wrestling. Like, obviously I'll never be able to thank him enough, but I hope that he knows that all the people's lives that he's touched just by creating his own professional wrestling academy with Merrick Brave and Matt Mayday, they make a lot of dreams come true, and they let us ride through the suck of being an early professional wrestler. But they only want to build us up because we're their guys, we're their kids, and they want to push us, but in our own way. I mean, Seth Rollins is not going to WWE once a year saying, you got to sign JT Energy. No, he sits there and he watches all his students and all of his kids. And out of everybody that's ever come from the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy, Nathan Frazier, who is on NXT 2.0 right now, he is our only Black and Brave Wrestling Academy graduate that has gone up to that next level, where he started out with NXT UK and now he has gone to NXT 2.0. And, you know, he's a house of fire. He's something completely different. But that's what got him to where he is now. And that's how everybody in professional wrestling has to know. Like, there's only so many spots on the roster, and there's a hell of a lot more NFL teams than there are professional wrestling companies. They're going to spend money on you, so you got to be something special for them to invest some type of a contract into you to bring you to that next level. You, as a person, are a long game, not a short game. So they need to see something in you that they are ready to invest on that next higher level at.
And that guy's Nate who?
Nathan Frazier.
Okay.
When he wrestled on the independents, his name was Benjamin Carter.
Okay.
And then when he went up, he started in NXT 2.0 or NXT UK. He's currently in NXT 2.0, but his name is Nathan Frazier.
Nice.
And he is, if you watch him, man, that kid, if I'm not mistaken, he has the record. We have a drill at the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy where you have to run back and forth in the ropes. You got to hit him 10 times. So back and forth is 1. And he has the record for doing it fastest.
Wow.
And when you see him move, if you look up highlights from his NXT 2.0, if you wrestle him, you have to be ready for his speed, because that's part of his thing. And he moves from one side of the ring to the other so fast that it's breakneck speed. You got to keep your eyes on the kid, because he is just a ball of fire, and he's got something special that someday he could absolutely find a way, especially working under people like Shawn Michaels, to get to that next level and become a WWE superstar. I mean, he already is one, but you know, the things that he could be, just like a young Seth Rollins.
Gotcha. So I have an opportunity this coming, no, well, yeah, this next Saturday to meet somebody that I think, I don't know if you're having if you still feel the same way about this person or not. You're probably going, I wonder who it is. I get to go to Pensacola up to Pensacon and I get to meet Danhausen. So
Okay, awesome.
I read about your interaction with Danhausen, and I read things like um, Bootyhausen versus Danhausen was a thing, or could have been a thing, or well, I'll just let you elaborate on your like or dislike for Danhausen.
Well, so one of the bigger professional wrestling companies here in Iowa is Pro Wrestling Revolver. It is run by Sami Callihan, who is part of Impact Pro Wrestling, and he has brought in some high caliber names to Iowa. And a couple years ago, I heard that Danhausen was going to be brought in for Pro Wrestling Revolver, and he was going to pick his own opponent. And the gentleman that he wrestled when he came here was Everett Connors. And I believe Everett is based out of maybe the Kansas City area, if I'm not mistaken. But when I heard that Danhausen was coming to Pro Wrestling Revolver, I thought to myself, awesome. Danhausen is on fire. I have quite the Iowa reputation for myself. I think if you wanted to have a match that would be insanely entertaining, having JT Energy versus Danhausen would be a once in a lifetime opportunity. And of course, that's me being a little selfish, trying to want to work with someone that is at the caliber of Danhausen, not only for just like wrestling, but like character and merchandising, learning from someone on his level for who he is and what he has become. So I tried to get a lot of my friends to get on Twitter, get online, do a lot of different things. I even had one friend, he went to the Cameo website and he bought a cameo from Danhausen, and he said, I want you to challenge JT Energy at Pro Wrestling Revolver. But at that time, Danhausen made a cameo and was like, I've already chosen Everett Connors as my opponent. I will not face JT Energy. And so I was a little bummed out, but at the time I'd worked for Pro Wrestling Revolver a couple times before. So I told my fiance, I was like, hey, we'll go to the show. I want to say hi to Sami, and I just want to see everything that's there. And I watched the match between him and Everett Connors, and just seeing Danhausen wrestle at least once was everything I wanted it to be. And of course, we got our picture taken with him, buy a shirt, because I want to support somebody who does those great things for professional wrestling. But Danhausen is on a whole nother level now. And it's extremely smart the way that he markets and who he is. Like, the man doesn't have to put on a 7-star classic to make you a bunch of money. He is a character that people absolutely love and want to see succeed. And he has built his small little empire of Hausens to support him. And, when I look at that, that's the type of stuff that eventually I want to figure out how to do. Like,
Awesome.
Find that lightning in a bottle to have your own little niche in professional wrestling. And Danhausen has really figured that out.
Nice. I love, Cody Rhodes' entrance song, something, Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, all that stuff. How important is entrance music and that for a wrestler and to get in with the fans?
I think entrance music, just like gear and your finishing move, I think it's all just as important. It is the full picture of a professional wrestler. And depending on where you work nowadays, some places let you, depending on if they tape their shows or whatever, some places are like, no, you can't use copywritten music. And that's kind of a bummer, because you're like, oh crap, I gotta figure out my own music, or I gotta use non-copyrighted music. But I can remember when I was allowed to pick music that everybody would know, some mainstream stuff, when I first picked my first entrance song, I chose Pony by Genuine. Okay. Because when that song comes on, people know it instantly. And Magic Mike had really like taken off when 2016 or whatever, because it had come out, the first one, and they had a couple sequels to it. But I knew if I wanted to portray my character as like a little eccentric that was pushing like, oh, he likes to dance and he wants to like say, hey, look at me, like that's the song. And I use that for my tag team that I was in, Vicious and Delicious. And when that song hit, I can't tell you how many years I would get on Facebook one day and someone's like, I went out last night and I heard Pony by Genuine. The only thing I can think about is you and your tag team partner coming out. And I'm in my brain, I'm like, that's what I want. I want you to hear a song and go, it's that guy's theme song. You have to do that. So I think it is extremely important for you to set the tone of having an entrance song that stops people in their tracks, or every time they hear it after they leave a show, that they make it part of their like playlist, because it is that important, because your song, it conveys those emotions that when people hear it, they go, oh, that guy makes me feel so good. I love his song. Like when Rich Swann comes out, he always comes out to, most of the time, he comes out to All Night Long, and he lets the whole song build up. And when he comes out, he gets everybody clapping and everybody singing All Night Long. And whenever you hear it from that point forward, you're just like, God damn, like Rich Swann, he makes me have so much fun every time I see him. I just want to dance and clap my hands. And that's what you really have to put with your song. But if you look at the complete other side of it, you got Roman Reigns theme song right now. You never thought we could have a more iconic theme song than the Shield's theme song.
Right.
And when they switched it, and the first couple times I heard it, I'm like, this doesn't really work. I'm not feeling it. But now when it comes on and the whole crowd throws up the ones, like it's this overwhelming emotion of song that like it just feels so powerful for what they've built it up and made it, that like it is so cool that the music can convey such an image in everybody's mind now.
Yeah. I saved this during the other end. Everybody talks about your experience with as a cameraman. To be honest, getting wrecked by Bray Wyatt. So
holy cow, the Wyatt family's got something against me, man.
I guess so. Share about that experience. I don't need to ask any questions. I just bring up the cameraman Bray Wyatt incident, and you're right. The Wyatt family must hate you or something. I don't know.
I don't know, man. It's the curse of the Wyatt family is upon me. A lot of people have told me, watch out, Braun Strowman's next. And that one worries me the most, probably. So yeah, we had the Eric Rowan thing. And then this most recent tenure spot that I got to work with WWE, they needed a cameraman for Bray Wyatt. And I was lucky enough to be chosen as said cameraman. Unfortunately, that night, Bray was a little off his rocker. I was unfortunately at the hands of his hands, which put a mandible claw on me. And if you think, oh, he probably faked it. Oh, no, he didn't. He got his hands in my mouth and gave me the mandible claw. Those guys that pulled me out of the ring saved my life. Holy smokes. And so I'm holding that WWE camera, and beforehand they're like, try to be as careful with it as possible, because all the cameramen hold the same camera. And they're like that camera, it's probably worth like $250,000-$300,000. And I'm like, oh my God. Like I'm panicked now. I'm holding this insanely amount of important equipment. And I know I have to get a mandible claw, but I also have to like gently set down this most expensive thing I've ever touched in my life, which is nerve-wracking in itself. But it was another one of those experiences where it happened. Guess what? I got to go home. I got to sit on my couch. I got to watch it, because again, it happened around Christmas. And when they go around Christmas, they tape stuff. So for the two biggest moments in my professional wrestling life, I have sat down and I have watched myself be attacked on television, once on Raw, once on SmackDown. And the wild thing about that, so I had my Eric Rowan spot, and now I've had my Bray Wyatt spot. a lot of people, I don't know if I've talked about it enough. The Bray Wyatt spot was taped. So the week previous, when it was taped on that day, that was also Brody Lee's birthday that was shot on. And so that was the other like Wyatt family part coming full circle together, that the day that Bray Wyatt attacked me was also on Brody Lee's birthday. So it did come like super full circle when it comes to Wyatt family stuff being completely tied together. But I got nothing but handshakes and congratulations and good jobs when it comes to how the segment went off. And it was wild because when you wear that cameraman headset, like you can hear everybody talking in that. And when you got people yelling in your ear and you also have to like look at someone that's about to attack you, like talk about my heart actually beating out of my chest, being very scared. A total different experience than when I was getting ready to be the punching bag of Eric Rowan, because I kind of got to control that time. But being at the hands of someone else's time, knowing something's coming your way and a lot is riding on this experience, it was wild. So when I watched it all be played back, it was very surreal. But again, how lucky am I to have dreams like that in professional wrestling come about? And then 10 to 15 years down the road, if I'm lucky enough to sit there on the couch with one of my kids on YouTube and you're like, hey, do you want to watch daddy get his head beat in? Or, if I'm lucky enough to do that, then that's awesome. I can't ask for enough, because experiences as an independent professional wrestler on that level, like your experiences is you're going to get beat up, and you hope it's the coolest way that you can possibly get beat up.
Right. So, I mean, the Wyatt family kicked your ass in last couple of years. So you had a chance to go to AEW and go up against the Acclaimed. Was that any different? I mean, how did that come out?
Okay, so Jesus,
we moved from one to
I know, right? Now the Acclaimed, so totally different, right? Here I go. I get to make my AEW debut, and I can remember the first time that I have reached out to AEW, and I got an email back saying, hey, thank you for sending along your information. We don't have anything for you right now. We'll be in touch at some point. And I was like, cool. A couple years go by, and I still hadn't heard anything. And I'm like, you know what? I should probably update all my stuff, and I'll send in and just make sure they have all the updated information. And within a week of me thinking that, here I go. Here comes my email, and they're like, we're coming to Minnesota. Are you available? And I was like, here we go. AEW. Who would have thought? So it was at the Target Center. They were filming the episode of Dynamite that was called Quake by the Lake. And I think that's when Chris Jericho was doing Lionheart Chris Jericho versus John Moxley, which was super cool to see. And so I get to go there, very excited. I know the deal. If you're an independent talent, you're coming in, guess what? You probably have a match. You're going to be on AEW Dark, which is going to be on YouTube. It's not live TV, but you still get the experience. And we get there, and one of the guys that I know in professional wrestling, his name is Jay Fowler. He goes by the Buns of Steel. Okay. So he's got a butt thing, and I've had a butt thing too. So the Buns of Steel and the 6-Star Booty, we had a feud in the past, and here we are for AEW, and we're a tag team now, and we get to face the Acclaimed. And the gentleman that helped us with our match was Billy Gunn, Mr. Ass, another butt guy, right?
Another butt guy, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I had wrestled Billy Gunn a couple years previously at SCW Pro. So I thought that was very cool that things were coming full circle in this moment.
Absolutely.
And I knew a little bit about the Acclaimed. I knew that Max Caster would do his rap and stuff like that. But when we went out there, we didn't have the longest match. We were the last match on the AEW Dark taping, so we had one of the shorter matches based on time and how things had worked out, which is fine. It's whatever. But I did not know how over the Acclaimed were. So when we went out there and their music hit, and I hear, yo, listen, and 17,000 people start losing their minds, I looked at my partner. I was like, dude, we are in trouble. I go, we are about to get our asses kicked. And so he does his rap and he says something about my partner. And then he looks at me and he goes, and looking like a broke ass Christopher Daniels. And I was just like, I rolled my eyes because when I had faced Eric Rowan, I wanted to see what the world thought about me. So I went to my Eric Rowan match and on YouTube and I scrolled every comment I could on there because I wanted to see what all these people in the world wanted to say about me, but I didn't know. So many people were like, who is this Christopher Daniels look-alike, blah, blah, blah. And it was so wild to me that so many people previously in my career had been like, oh, you just look like Christopher Daniels. And then Max Caster comes out and is like, looking like a broke ass Christopher Daniels. And I was like, here we go, world coming full circle. Because he didn't know about those comments. He doesn't ask you like, hey man, what can I make fun of? He just rolls off the chest on what it looks like to him.
Yeah.
And if you look at that whole AEW Dark taping, there's a lot of my friends that were on there, but when you face the Acclaimed, it's different because the Acclaimed, not only do they wrestle you, they rap about you. And the fans remember the match, but they also, more importantly, remember the rap.
Right.
And the rap gets you extra exposure because people know you're the broke ass Christopher Daniels guy. And there was somebody who made a TikTok that was like real elaborate and they put a whole bunch of pictures and stuff with the rap. And when I saw it, I was like, this is what my professional wrestling career is about. It's about me wrestling people that give me extra. They give me longer moments to make things happen for me or things to talk about instead of just matches. So it was short, it was sweet, but it was at the Target Center, the biggest crowd I've ever wrestled in front of. The Acclaimed are going to be one of the greatest tag teams in AEW history. And I'll remember that right before they got white hot, I got to wrestle on AEW Dark and I got to have Platinum Max Caster rap me. And I took that elbow drop. And if you look back at it, I don't know why, right after the elbow drop, he kisses my hand during the pin. And then when he gets up, he steps right on my junk and he just acts like nothing happened. And I
gotta go watch that now.
It's pinned. No, it used to be pinned right at the top of my Twitter. But if you watch the match, he gets up and accidentally steps right on my crotch. Thanks, Max Caster.
Nice. JT Bundy's in the house. He says, "Hey, Mr. J." He says, "Hey, Mr. JT, what's going on?"
No, not a lot, Mr. Bundy. I can't wait to see you again around here.
I got a little bit more. I hope I don't want to take a lot of your time. I hope
you're fine.
Okay. Cool. I have to ask, how do you think you would match up against MJF? And do you like the guy? Do you have a beef with him?
I don't have a beef with him. Not at all. MJF is MJF. He isn't like anything else. I don't think anybody else will ever be like MJF because I think MJF gets to be the catalyst of where we are and where we can go when it comes to professional wrestling. And the opportunities that he is getting, has gotten, and may get in the future, he is building something in AEW that is unlike anything else, whether it's in a good way or a bad way. At least people are talking and they know who MJF is.
Right.
Now, MJF, so if I were to look at MJF as like a double-edged sword, right?
Right.
If I look at MJF and let's say I look at him the exact same way that I look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump, if I say that name, a lot of people instantly get triggered and they go, I don't know what you're about to say, but I already hate it. MJF, when he is on the screen, you don't know what he's about to say, but a lot of people know that it's going to be over the line and they already hate it. Right. But you're going to hear about it because people are going to talk about it and it's going to get annoying and you're going to get mad at it. But that's the epitome of what MJF is. He calls himself the salt of the earth because he doesn't want a single person liking him ever. He wants the idea that like someone on Twitter would say something and they're like, I'm handicapped and whatever. And MJF just says, that's amazing. I'm so glad you're handicapped. Heaven forbid, I actually hope you're dead. Like, he's the guy that will push it and say things where you're like, no one should ever say that. And his professional wrestling coach, or where he went to school, was Creative Pro Wrestling. So Brian Myers is the gentleman that taught Max. And I listen to the Major Wrestling Figure podcast, and when you hear Brian Myers talk about MJF, he's even said before, like, dude, some of the stuff that Max says is like not okay. But MJF is also like, screw it, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna do the things that no one's ever done before, and I'm gonna make people remember me till the end of time. And if he ever goes to a level beyond AEW, like New Japan Pro Wrestling or WWE, like, it's hard to like pull the reins back on that horse when you know what he's good at.
Right.
And he's an amazing professional wrestler. Everybody knows he's money. He is a storyteller to the T, and that's he knows what he is and what he does.
Right.
Now, my problem in life is that if I were to be in a feud with someone and someone brought up stuff that they shouldn't bring up, and that's how they get things to intensify, like, how much do you want to bring personal and professional life together to like maximize the efficiency of a payday? And if you're going to do it on the level of AEW or WWE, that makes sense. You're trying to get millions of people to watch you. On an independent professional wrestling level, what am I going to get? I'm going to get a couple hundred people out, so that way more people buy merchandise and stuff like that. I mean, that's great, but I also, like, I don't know the words they're going to say in the short term that could affect the long term that would hurt me. And I don't have the ability to do it at the level that he does right now. But I mean, he's got all the eyes in the world on him. But with the professional wrestling world, like, if everybody's got their eyes on you, that also means that everybody's got their eyes on you and is ready to cancel you in 1 second if you say the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Right.
But that's Max. I mean, he's young. He's got so many years ahead of him. And if he disappeared for 2 years and then showed back up and said, here I am again, like, cool, you put a reset on your career. The only thing that you could do is like an unforgivable thing, and then you're screwed.
Gotcha. Couple questions from my kiddos that I care for. We were sitting around the dinner table, and I was talking about my experience, and they said, "Hey, can we ask some questions?" I said, "Okay." So these are just off stuff. Favorite food?
Favorite food. I've brought it back into my life recently, and that is my love for pizza. For many years, I did not eat pizza. That was my strict diet and insanity to make myself a very low percentage body fat. I recently have said, nah, I'm going to eat all the pizza I want. I'm going to see how these muscles grow by eating pizza. So I love myself some thin crust pepperoni pizza, unless we're in Chicago, and then I'll eat some deep dish pepperoni pizza.
Nice. Favorite video game?
I'm going to go with the classic, WWF No Mercy.
All right. Favorite kind of match you've been in?
Favorite kind of match? Street fights. Street fights make me wake up extra sore the next day, so I don't know if those are my favorite kinds of matches. You know what? I had so much fun in my career as a tag team professional wrestler that I really love tag team professional wrestling. Okay. I know eventually my career is going to come around back to it. But I love a good tag team professional wrestling match.
Okay. Yeah, you said the Target Center was your favorite venue?
Well, that was the biggest. That was the venue where I got to perform in front of the most fans. The one, if I were to say the best locker room that I ever got to be a part of, where we get to be extras when we are at the Milwaukee Bucks arena in Wisconsin. That's usually a pretty nice place where they put the WWE extras there. We have a little bit of extra room, which is nice that we're not crammed in like a little broom closet or anything. So gotcha. I like that place up there.
Quickly, Mark, your Mount Rushmore male male wrestlers?
I'll just rattle off a couple of my favorites. We're gonna go by generations. This is how I always do it. We're gonna go Diesel, Diesel, Kevin Nash. Then we're gonna go to Batista, Jeff Hardy, Seth Rollins.
Favorite wrestling move you don't use?
The Swanton Bomb.
All right. I was hoping you said that because I got to tell you a story real quick. I grew up in wrestling in the era they had Saturday night's main event, and it was Sid Vicious and Hogan or Sid Vicious, whoever, and he had a power bomb, and he goes, "Ooh, what's that? I smell the power bomb." Right. So my brother, who was like 9 or 10 at the time, snuck into my room to watch Saturday night main event. We weren't supposed to have him in my room. My mom and dad told me that night, "Do not let Matt come in your room." Period. Well, he snuck by, and I'm not going to tell him he can't come in my room. You know, we're best friends now. You know, and Sid Vicious's music comes on. He walks down. He said what he says, and I picked up my brother in the power bomb move,
Yeah.
and I threw him out of the bed. His feet fly up, knock down the ceiling light, crashes to the floor, and Guthrie's now in trouble.
Oh, man.
So I was hoping I saved that for almost the last because I was like, he's got to say the power bomb.
I've been there. When I was little, like the 3 moves that like were synonymous that I always had to do was I always had to do the sharpshooter, the power bomb, and the razor's edge. Right. But the sharpshooter and the razor's edge always felt the safest because you get a little bit more setup with the razor's edge. And I would always like do them to my little sister, and I would say, if you cry, I am gonna just lock this in even harder. And she would sit there and she'd be like, okay, go ahead and do the move. And eventually I'd do one too hard and she'd start crying, and then my mom would freak out and be like, what are you doing to her? Yeah. But as a professional wrestler, the Swanton Bomb is something that I love, but I do not do because I realized that even though Jeff Hardy is my favorite professional wrestler of all time, when I got into professional wrestling, I realized real quick I do not want to wrestle like Jeff Hardy in any way, shape, or form.
Right. I did notice, this is something I read about you or seen on Facebook about you that was like, oh, damn, I didn't realize this. Well, I think it's pretty cool. Your experiences in sports card breaks. Specifically wrestling sports card breaks. Interesting. You say I read that about you because I have my son Cody and I have a Whatnot channel, and we have tried to get our stuff going as far as doing breaks on Whatnot. My wife and I have a business outside of our foster care. We call it Collector Corner, and we have distributors that we can get product from. So when I seen that, I was like, hey, I got to just ask him to elaborate just a little bit about that experience.
Okay. So as a professional wrestler, you have to take the things that you love and figure out how to maximize the efficiency of them to like interact with your fan base, right? There's one thing for sure that I love above all, and that's professional wrestling action figures. But I don't love to sell them. I just love to find them, and I love to keep them, and I love to grow my collection.
Right.
I know eventually someday that will change, but for now, that's my MO. That's why I have a figure Friday every Friday on my Instagram. I throw up one of my figures. But when wrestling trading cards caught my eye a little while ago, like a year ago, maybe, I started to see them at like Target. And usually I wouldn't look at the hobby boxes. I would just see these little blaster boxes. And blaster boxes are like what, $30, $25?
Yeah, $25, yeah.
And I started to like do the math because I was kind of like looking at Whatnot and being like, okay, people like this stuff. All right, that's cool. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, hey, screw it. I'm going to try to start something new. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. And I did the math, and I would say, okay, if I buy this blaster box for $30 and there's 6 packs of cards in here, and I sell each pack for $5, like I break even. But if I sell it all for $1 over that, I make, I don't know, $6, whatever. It's a profit. Any profit is good profit. And so I started to sell them to people, and then I thought, okay, I'll just open them live. So I get to open things like that way every Thursday night. It's like a Christmas for me because I get to see everybody's cards that they won. I get
Right.
excited. It's cool. What am I going to pull? And then I would show everybody, and I try to like sell it to like people I'm going to see at local pro wrestling shows. If I see them at the shows, I don't got to ship anything. So I save on the shipping, which is good for me because that's the only thing holding me back from thinking about Whatnot is I don't want to sell a bunch of stuff and then pack it all up and then take it to the post office and then ship it all out. That's the extra step I don't want to find a way to fit in my day. But I'll take stuff to pro wrestling shows I'm at, and my fans will support me because they like to see what I'm doing and they have fun with it. And a lot of people are like $5, whatever. That's a cup of Starbucks. I'll spend $5 a week on cards. So that's what I've done. And now that I know people like it, like I just went to Target the other week and they got the new WWE Chronicles blaster boxes in. So I bought 5 boxes of cards on my credit card because I know I'm going to get the collateral back. So I opened 1 box for myself to familiarize myself with the set. And then the other 4 boxes I'll just sell. I have my people that I message every week saying, this is what I have. This is how much it is. You can PayPal, Venmo, Cash App me. Send me the money. I'll open it. I'll see you at the show. And here we are. And it's just a fun thing. It only takes me like an hour on Thursday nights that I do it. And it's fun to interact with people in like a live chat. I don't have to. And if I don't have a pack that's sold, then I'll just keep those cards and I'll sell them at the next wrestling show. I just sell them for like $1 a card or whatever. Like it's just a fun thing to get people's foot in the door with another aspect of pro wrestling. So it's fun. And I've only bought like, I think I bought like 1 AEW hobby box when it was around Christmas because it was on like a Black Friday. So I was like, hey, cool. I'll spend a little bit extra once a year. So, but it's cool. Whenever I see people with like cases on Whatnot, I'm like, I can't even imagine. But they wouldn't do it if they didn't have it figured out where they could make profit, right?
Right.
So there's got to be like a way to do it to always kind of maximize the efficiency of what you're spending. You just got to figure out how to get the return on that stuff. And I'm sure the more you dig your fingers into it, the more that you learn, the more that you figure out how to get that back. So
now, where do you do your Thursday show at? On Facebook or on Whatnot?
I do it on Instagram. I always go on Instagram live on Thursday nights. I usually don't have like a specific time. It tends to be like 8-9 p.m. depending on how long me and my fiance like sit on the couch and enjoy our time together. And then like, hey, I got to get my card break going, and go from there. So,
couple more questions. I have, when people say wrestling is fake, what's that? That speaks volumes, I'm sure, to the athletes. And I know that you've taken a bunch of chops from. Let me see who did I write down. So tell us who the hardest chop you took from. And I know you went bing, boing, boing 4 times. So,
who's the person that is probably? I was gonna say it's either there's probably 2 people. Trevor Murdoch throws a hell of a chop. I'll tell you that. But there's also a local guy around here called Mean Mason Beck, and his moniker is he is the walking horror film. And that man, he took my soul from my body, I think, that night that I faced him. There's also another guy out of Kansas City named Moonshine Mantell. And that man is another that just, when you fight somebody that you know that they like to chop, you just got to be ready for it. And sometimes you're not ready for it no matter what, because some people, the bigger they are, guess what? The harder they hit. But the moniker that people, it's so dumb at this point that people are like, wrestling is fake. Well, movies are fake. Like TV is fake. Reality TV is fake. The idea that sports like MLB, NFL, the NBA, guess what? They have paid advertisements, they have commercials, there's the rules of the game are all based around the people that own the stadium, own the organization. So like I hate the idea that like someone would call professional wrestling fake. But then if I look at someone, and we'll use the Kansas City Chiefs as a example because they just won
Okay.
the Super Bowl. Okay.
Okay.
So the people that are like, I am a Kansas City Chiefs fan and we won the Super Bowl. Well, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. You didn't win anything.
That's right.
You support Patrick Mahomes. So you
Yes.
buy Patrick Mahomes jersey and you wear his name on your back because he's your
Yes.
guy. Well, I like Seth Rollins. So I wear Seth Rollins t-shirt and he's my guy. I understand that your guy goes out and he performs under pressure. So does my guy in a thing called WrestleMania, which is just as big as the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So when people sit back and they look at this different stuff, they have found ways to entertain themselves around different things. And I have too. They just can't wrap their brain around why I think that's cool and they think this is cool.
There you go.
But it's all based on how you enjoy things. But like when you go through high school and you play football, baseball, wrestling, whatever it might be, you attach yourself to these things that invoke the emotions out of your heart. Well, I didn't necessarily fall in love with those sports and keep it long term like I did professional wrestling.
Mhm.
So the people that go out there, and it's a whole different business. When you go to a live pro wrestling event, you appreciate pro wrestling. And the people that I really like the people that are like, pro wrestling is so fake. And then they come to a pro wrestling event and they're looking, they really want to see, they want to prove themselves right. They want to see people talking and whatever. But then when you see or you hear a chop for the first time, or you see someone bleeding and you're like, I don't know what's going on. Like I can't distinguish the real from the fake or whatever you want to call it. And I urge people that when they think pro wrestling is so dumb because it's so fake, just go to a live pro wrestling event, give us $10 versus the next Marvel movie you want to see for $10.
Yeah.
And then see which one gives you a better high throughout the night, especially if you go see it with your friends. Tell me which one was more fun and more bang for your buck that's going to keep you coming back time after time. You don't have to wait 2 years to see us. You can see us the next month. You got to wait 2 years to see your next Marvel movie.
That's right. That chair behind me right there. I got that at the XIW Impact, my first indie wrestling promotion event. And the guy got hit in the head with that chair right in front of me. And I'm like, damn.
Jeez. It looks nice and dented to me.
It is. So we're at the close. Any closing remarks that you want to share with the fans? 2023, what's that look like for JT Energy? Where can they find you? Anything like that?
Okay. So 2023, hopefully my goal for 2023 was be just as busy as I was in 2022. Because I try to keep myself to a standard, but I don't want to run myself too busy, especially this year. I'm getting married this year. So I have a little bit more like push on my professional life than my personal life than my professional life this year. So regardless of what happens this year, it's not going to top my wedding. So it's whatever. I'm not even worried about it at this point. If you want to see more of me, find out more about me, if you go to places like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Pro Wrestling Tees, that's all the places that if you type in the word JT Energy, you can find out more about me. My handle on a lot of those places is DJ Click and Play. So it's DJ, the word click, the letter N, and then play. Because before I was a pro wrestler, I was a DJ.
Okay.
And my DJ name was DJ Click and Play. And because I had that handle on everything, I just kept it. I didn't change it. I didn't do anything. But most actively, I share stuff on Instagram. That's always been my bread and butter. If you want to find links to all my pro wrestling t-shirts, all my podcasts, YouTube videos, reels, TikToks, everything I try to keep originated from the Instagram. Obviously, the best way to support a professional wrestler that you can't see in person is to go to their Pro Wrestling Tees or check out their Instagram or social media, see how they're trying to fund themselves, make some extra money, grow their place in professional wrestling.
Right.
But that's kind of what you can catch me doing. Like you said, I do my card breaks on Thursday nights when I have cards, but I got cards right here ready to break this Thursday.
Nice,
So
nice.
I'll have a couple weeks of those, and then hopefully I can find some more in the wild. But that's it. If anything, just I know you at the start of the show said that, hey, thank you for coming on my show because this is a really cool thing. But every time I get a chance to do a podcast or whatever someone is contributing to professional wrestling, to me, it's a big thing. And you, out of everyone I've ever talked with online, you were the most professional and on top of making sure that you got everything down to a T and made sure that things worked and stuff like that. So for the effort that you put into that, thank you for doing that for me, because I really appreciate that, because that helps, because both you and I were giving our time up tonight to do what we love here.
Right.
So,
Absolutely. 100%.
So if anything, I'm always trying to tell people, yes, I'm JT Energy. I'm the unsolved mystery. I am a guy from Iowa who loves professional wrestling and is trying to make it better than when he came into it. But more than anything, I'm just trying to prove to people that I love professional wrestling and I love the people that come out to professional wrestling. So in the long run, that's what I'm hoping to leave my legacy as. And hopefully people thought that I was pretty good at doing what I did along the way. As long as I can get a little bit of kudos and people want to pick my brain about pro wrestling someday, that's all I care about. So I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate if anyone that finds out about me through this podcast wants to get in contact with me, please do. I'm a super nice guy. If you contact me on any form of social media, I'm happy to talk to you. Unless you're insane but I mean, those people exist in pro wrestling, but most people aren't too over the top or crazy. But I'm always just trying to get new fans and see what people want to see from me when it comes to the world of professional wrestling.
Well, thanks a lot, JT Energy. I'm Huge Pop. Stick around, stay in the lobby. Don't disconnect. I'm going to play something, and because you said you're an Attitude Era fan, so I think I got this right. But thank you, JT Energy. Thank you, Huge Pop Wrestling fans, for coming in. We're going to end with this little tidbit, and then I'm going to talk to JT in the lobby. So
NWO for life.
Break it down. Bow to the master.